Whoa, there are some good changes in Subclass 485. The introduction of Migration Amendments COVID-19 Concessional Regulations 2020. Now, guys, this is a little bit technical, but I promise you, you will learn a lot from what I'm going to say. So my name is Teresa Cardona. I'm a lawyer and a registered migration agent from Auspac Visa. Okay, so let's jump into it. Now, on 19th of September, yesterday, the Department of Home Affairs issued some important changes in the Migration Act and Migration Regulations. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what Migration Act and Migration Regulations are, let me give you a little bit of idea about this. Now, Migration Act 1958 is a law that relates to the entry, to the stay, departure, and deportation of aliens or certain persons from Australia. So sa Tagalog po, ito po yung mga batas na siyang gumagabay sa pagpapasok, pagpapanatili, pagpapalabas, o kaya naman pagpapadeport sa mga hindi taga-Australia o ng ibang tao na walang legal right na manatili sa Australia. So ang Migration Act naman po ay siyang nagbibigay kapangyarihan sa mga iba't ibang mga batas at regulasyon na may kinalaman sa pagpapasya at pagkakaloob ng mga visa sa mga tao o sa mga Filipino who can meet the criteria set for a specific subclass. So itong collection ng mga batas at regulasyon na ito ay binuo at ito ay tinawag na Migration Regulations 1994. So ngayon po, itong sinasabi ko na mga changes o pagbabago sa batas na inilabas kahapon ay amyenda lamang po o pagsusuglang dun sa malaking Migration Regulations 1994. So this is just a little part of the entire Migration Regulations 1994 that we migration agents and lawyers use in order to understand your situation and in order to give you some advice. So, yung mga pagbabago naman po sa batas na iyan ay pinag-isa at ginawa nga po at pinagsama-sama bilang isang amendment na tinatawag natin ngayon na Migration Amendment COVID-19 Concession Regulations 2020. Now, why do we need this Migration Amendment COVID-19 Concessions Regulations 2020? Now, if you can recall, there are thousands of people, especially Filipino international students, who went home for a holiday just before COVID happened. So unfortunately, this group of people were unable to come back to Australia due to COVID-19 pandemic, the border closures, and some other economic restrictions. So itong amyenda o pagsusog na ito ay ginawa para doon sa mga hindi na nakabalik sa Australia dahil sa COVID. Lalong-lalo na po yung mga international students who have completed their studies or about to complete their studies and were ready to work or live in Australia, but they can't do it because they were offshore. Now, in order for them not to be disadvantaged just because they are outside of Australia, and for the government to ensure that they still enjoy their eligibility rights for Subclass 485, this amendment was introduced. Okay? So, di ba may mga visa na maaari lang nating i-apply kung ikaw ay nasa Australia? So, ito yung mga visa na kahit na eligible ka, na pwede namang mag-grant, pero kung nasa labas ka ng Australia, ay hindi ka pwedeng mag-apply. So, ano-ano ba yung mga visa na yon? So, for example, di ba, Subclass 887, the Skilled Regional Visa, yung Subclass 888, the Business Innovation and Investment Visa, o kaya naman yung Subclass 790, the Safe Haven Visa, at syempre yung Subclass 485. Ngayon, we're not interested with all the other visas that I mentioned, but we are interested with Subclass 485. So, which means to say that our focus is Subclass 485 in this particular segment for mere reasons that not a lot of Filipinos hold other visas that I mentioned. So, now, the most important question is, what are the changes in Subclass 485? Now, there are 4 important changes. So, the first one, please take note that this amendment allows for the establishment of the initial concession period, which begins on the 1st of February 2020. Now, what does this mean? Now, this means that those who are outside Australia from the 1st of February 2020 but eligible to lodge an application that requires them to be onshore can now lodge an application even though they are offshore. So the end date of the concession period is not yet determined. But the good thing here is there is a concession period that was allowed by this amendment, which begins on the 1st of February 2020. Okay, now the second change, the visa eligibility requirements. Now, before this amendment, you are not allowed to apply for Subclass 485 if you are offshore. But now with the amendment, international students can now be allowed to apply for a study visa or post-study visa, Subclass 485, even if they are outside of Australia during the concession period. And this visa can now be granted while the applicant is offshore. Dati hindi pwede. So this means that the former international students can now obtain a visa to return to Australia when travel restrictions are lifted. So the visa period will start from the date of entry, not from the date of approval. Ang ganda, di ba? So the third is the removal of the usual requirement to have held a student visa within the last 6 months period immediately before making an application. Okay, so this means that if you are outside of Australia during the concession period, but your student visa has expired but would have been eligible for a Subclass 485, if not because of COVID-19, then you can now lodge a Subclass 485. So the fourth change is the extension of the period to meet the Australian study requirement from 6 months to 12 months for applicants prevented from returning to Australia due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. So what does this mean? This means that the 6 months window, the period between you completing your study and applying for the Subclass 485 that was required for student to apply for Subclass 485, is now extended to 12 months. So this also means that the completion date is still something that you have to take note and be aware of. So, but the counting starts from your completion date, which is in your certificate, up to 12 months. All right. Now, bakit maganda itong amendments ito? So what's beautiful about this amendment? So first is, of course, una, meron ng flexibility yung mga applicants ng Subclass 485 na naapektuhan ng COVID-19 and associated travel restrictions. Ang amyenda ay para masiguro na yung mga student visa holders na eligible naman to apply for Subclass 485 bago mag-COVID-19 ay mananatiling eligible kahit na nga nasa labas sila ng Australia. Okay, now, in summary, so what is your takeaway? So, now remember, international student visa holders who are eligible to apply for Subclass 485 but adversely affected by COVID-19 because they are outside of Australia from the 1st of February 2020 can now lodge a Subclass 485 even if they are outside Australia. Now, the visa, once granted, will start from the date of entry, not from the date of visa grant. Okay, so you know what to do. If you need help or visa assistance, contact us and we will be happy to help you. So see you around and have a good weekend.